All right. You should be able to share, Girja, now. You want to go ahead and share your screen? Go ahead. I can see the screen now. Girja, if you're speaking it, I think you're speaking on mute. We can't hear you.
So this is nurse process diagrams. So when the patient is below 21 and Ohio resistant, the nurse refer patient to the doctor. It's starting from the nursing.
So
Then
is
DS
this, hang on, is this to be process or this is current process?
process diagram, not to be. It's
No,
a
no.
process diagram. Yeah.
Again, the process, whatever process diagram you put it, it's going to be either as is process or it's the new process when the system is up, how it's going to follow. So which one is
Assist,
this? Is this the
assist.
as is? Okay.
Uh-huh. So nurse refer patient to the doctor and diagnosis done by the doctor. And nurse is also submit the referral form to the county. And doctor after diagnosis.
Hang on. So the arrow is the wrong way, right? So if nurse is going to refer the patient
Yes.
to that, then it should be the other way around, right? It should not be the right.
Yes, you're right. I fix it.
Okay.
Something is wrong. Okay. And then after diagnosing, doctor is filling
Now,
up. Uh,
hang on one thing. You put the county as the line,
yes.
but who is in county?
BSMH.
No, but it's health department, right?
Yes.
Then I would put it that county health department as the specific thing, right? Because
Okay.
county is too generic. Who in the county, right? The doctor and nurses work for county too.
Okay. Okay. So doctor after diagnosing, it's filling up the form and coming to, and the parents sign the form and then they submit the form to
Where is
the
the
health.
submission, right? Once they sign it, it
Yeah.
goes submit to
It goes
form
to
the
the form
county.
to the
Okay,
healthy department in person, and
okay,
the health department is checking the financial eligibility.
okay,
Once the financial eligibility is checked, then they're sending the LOA or denial notice to the parents and doctors.
okay,
So till LOA, he asked me to do it.
okay. So this
So,
this seems good.
okay. And then this is what, like, when the system is involved, this is what my little doubt, because I had it. So here, the same process. Nurse refers, doctor comes diagnosing, filling up the form, the signing, and then here it comes the register after submitting the form to the county. Then the system is involved, like registering the patient info.
Right.
That right? Okay. So again, the same process is going on. Like county, I mean, health department is taking the financial decision. Once they are taking it, it's LOA or denial notice received by parents and doctors. And here, when they come to checking the financial eligibility criteria, it's coming to the system. Is that right? I had some.
No, so think of it, right? So let's go through sequentially. Uh, this is as part of the patient registration process, right?
Yes.
So once they register, right,
Uh-huh.
somebody needs to also provide them the additional documentation, whether they're going to be financial eligibility or not, right?
Yes.
So those documents is probably going to be done online, offline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then based on that, the decision is going to be made by county health department,
Okay.
but they are going to utilize system to make that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, right, uh,
Uh-huh.
I would challenge you to think about it. Is the county and the PHN is the same or different?
They're same.
Right. So why you have two different swim lanes?
Oh, so So here is registration, the patient info, it's done in the
But
system.
that same thing is when somebody submits a county form in person, right?
Yes.
The information is getting submitted directly into the PHN system, right? Whether somebody keys in or
Uh-huh.
they get it electronic feed from somewhere, right? So to
Uh-huh.
me, in this case, think about it. All of the activity county is doing is in the PHN system. It's not doing offline,
Okay.
right? So those two should be the same. You should
Okay.
not have to have a two different swim lanes for that.
I mean, the system is not required here.
No, no. What I'm saying is that the activity that is the county is
Financial
doing.
eligible.
Now, hang on, Gija, listen to me. The activity that you're performing in the county, it's
Uh-huh.
exactly same activity that is happening in the PHN system,
Yes.
right? So what it was in the as is, it is a manual work.
Yes.
In the to be, it is still the same work done, but it's done in the system.
Okay.
So you don't need a two separate lanes, right? What you're just saying is that the county lane is now replaced by PHN system, and that's what it's keeping track of it
Okay.
for this particular scenario, right? Now they may
Uh-huh.
still do it, the health department still do it, a separate processing outside. In those cases, you may have to separate it out. But in this particular example that you showed it
Uh-huh.
is now replaced. It's still doing the same activity, just happening in the PHN system instead of manual.
Okay. So is that right if I take from the health department?
Say that again.
Is that okay if I take this box from the health department? Is that what?
It should be, so again, I would not keep a separate county. I would just change that to a PHN system.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Yeah, because they are one and same at this point for this particular purpose in this part of the process.
Okay. I got it. Thank you. And then the
And
LOA notice from the system or from the department? How how the
It will go from the system, right?
system? Okay.
Because now system, somebody might still be printing it and sending mailing it manually,
Uh-huh.
right?
Okay.
Because it may not be an interface, right? So the parents get it that in the mail.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hang on, let me admit Kushal. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Dilip, can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
When you start a process, like for example, in this case, it is visiting a BCMH provider. That's how it triggers the action, or they could go to county nurse. Can a start have two arrows showing two?
Yeah, yeah. It could be
Okay,
like so the work could initiate from multiple places, right?
okay.
It could be also be, hey, I've visited a doctor
Mm-hmm.
and doctor's office noticed that hey, I have this particular condition, and then they need to notify county for that, and
Mm-hmm.
then the county will initiate that process, right? So it may still come up front or uphill, upstream process that may trigger those things,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
right? It's good.
Yes.
Anything else that anybody had a doubt before we dive into today's topic?
No, sir. I'm good.
Okay. Shana, you good?
Yes, yes, I am.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to start like it's talking about the story mapping. So let me share the screen. Okay, let me know when you are able to see the screen.
We were able to see it.
I'm able.
Okay. It's a PowerPoint, right? So let me do that, right? So, so as you go into more an agile world, right? The similar things you need to start thinking around how I'm going to put it. You still need your stakeholder map. You still need your context diagram. You still need your process diagram. Once you do process diagram, you need to start getting into it. So how I'm going to implement the overall systems, right? And in order to break it down, what all things you need to implement, they utilize a technique called a story mapping. Right? So what story mapping allows you to do it is first think about it is who all are my users of system? Okay. What activities they will perform. In order to perform those activities, what task needs to be performed. Okay. And then based on those tasks, then you start writing the stories. Okay. So here is an example, right? So let's say if I want to like it's kind of manage my overall Outlook system, right? So let's say if I'm trying to build out a system that enables people to manage their mail and manage their calendar, what it will look like, right? So when you think around managing my email, right? The key activity the user is going to do it is going to organize the email. They're going to manage that, and then they're going to manage the calendar, right? So within organizing, right, I could do things like I'm going to search an email, or I'm going to take it and file it into appropriate folders, right? That gives me ability to organize it. If I have to manage it, right, think around 3 tasks that I will perform. I'll perform either writing an email, reading an email, or deleting an email, right? Then when you think around the calendar, right, the same thing. I'm going to either look at it, what my calendar looks for today, like what all appointments I have it. I'm going to either create a new appointment, update a new appointment, or view an appointment, right? And view an appointment could be today's, or it could be, I could be doing a searching an appointment and says, hey, when do I have this appointment next, right? So in a story map example, right, what you're trying to do it is you organize what all activities, and for that activity, what tasks you perform. And then once you identify those tasks you perform, then you start talking about how I'm going to implement that task, right? So when you talk about, right, searching, you can say, hey, I want to search by a keyword, or I want to search by attachment, or I want to search in a specific folder only, or I want to search by multiple field, like it's where it could be the email sent by Herschel and it falls within this date range, then I want to search it, right? All of those becomes what it is called about as your requirement, right? So as we talk about the requirements specifically to do that task, those things will come in. Okay. So let's create a one, right? Okay. So I'm going to start with a custom creation example, right? So let me get out of this, right? So in a custom creation, right? Let me see it. Are you guys able to see it? The screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So think around in custom creation. Who all are my users of the system, right? So things that you identified in the orange box here are actually my users, right? So employees is going to access my system. My pricing department employee is going to set that, right? My customers who are traditionally non-corporate customer, existing customer are going to use the system, and my corporate customers are going to use the system, right? Does this make sense? How you
Yes.
take the stakeholder map, start the starting point for your story map. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with that, right? So I'm going to do it and say, hey, I want to do it. I might start with my corporate customers, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that this is my corporate customers, right? Right. So this is your corporate customers. Now let's talk about what all activities they will perform, right? So one thing they will do it is obviously they want to see it, what all products is available for them to customize, right? Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and format this. want to change my font to be black. And I want to change this to yellow. Okay. So one thing they will do it is reviewing a product, right? What other activity will they do it? Anybody?
They'll be able to customize the product.
So customizing a product is essentially an ordering, right? So I could do it on order an item, and as part of it is the task will be customizing, right?
Right, that makes sense.
And then what is the other thing we'll do it? If I place an order, right, I will check it.
Track,
What is the
track.
status, right?
Yeah, track and order.
So I'm going to view my orders, right? Now let's talk about it within the viewing products. What activity you do it? Let's just refine it one particular things, and then you will get an idea of how we're doing, right? So in order to review the products, and let me change the color so we can separate it out, activities versus tasks, right? So one thing I could do is, remember we said I need to know who I am, right? So Herschel, and we talked about that there is a requirement to do login, right? This is where it comes into. Remember, we draw the process diagram in saying that we're going to start with a login, then we're going to do it is search, right? Right. So I'm going to be able to search for an item, right? I could do a search of product, right? Then within searching a product, what would I do after that? I may want to look at for details, right? Think around how you do it in Amazon, right? You look for a product and then you look for the details of that product, right? So I try to do this, right? And then what we'll do here, I'll do it, right? So this way it becomes any easier for us, right? And this one, I'll keep it a story map for ordering an item. And then a page for this, right? Okay. So now within, let's draw it. So login, what are, now think around, if I have to implement a login, what are the ways I can log in? Think about different ways you think your corporate customer is going to log in, right? So one would be is I could do simply just user ID and a password, right? And then let's change this to what other ways you think a corporate customer can log in? It's a quiet group today. Shana, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
No. I was trying to say, I was thinking about Amazon and I'm like Face ID, but I'm like, that doesn't make sense here.
Yep. No, that makes sense, right? So it could be your biometrics, right? Could be a thumbprint, could be a Face ID, could be any other ways to do it, right?
Okay.
So do it, right? So log in using biometrics. You can also potentially do it a single sign-on, right? So a lot of times when you go into your company and then you may have a benefits and you click on benefits, it doesn't require you to separately log in. It automatically authenticates you using your corporate credentials and allows you to log in, right? So that is a lot of times it's known as a single sign-on. Now, how do you come up to all these boxes, right? So when you talk to your customers during interview, right? They say, hey, I need to log in into the system. That's when you ask a question, okay, what are different ways you anticipate your customer is going to log in? And they say, hey, they're going to use a user ID and a password and they're going to use single sign-on, right? Then you know that, hey, I need to put only those two ways and not for the biometrics. It's based on what user describes how they anticipate the system to behave. That's when you start putting all these stories.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's talk about it, the searching a product, right? So since it's a custom creation, we can say, hey, when user comes in, they can search product by multiple ways. They can search by product by saying that I want to see all the products, right? Or in that case, there is no search criteria, right? So I'm just logging in and search view all. Or potentially they can say, I'm going to search by name, right? So they can say, hey, I want to search by a specific name. Or I can say, hey, show me the product based on a different type. Like show me all the pens that I can customize, right? Or show me all the t-shirts that I can customize. Or show me all of the notebooks that I can customize. Another thing they could do potentially is they said, show me all the products that are within $5 and $10 range, right? So I want to search by price, right? Or I want to search by a price range, right? So I could say it's show me all the $5 ones or show me anything which is between $5 and $10, something like that. Okay. Excuse me. Once I start searching for a given product, right, then I'm going to see it as, hey, I want to show all the details, right? So they will click into it and it will show the details. Now, is the detail you may need to do it multiple times? Probably not, right? Because details is detail. I'm going to show it everything. But you can potentially say it, hey, I'm going to not show every details. I'm going to show only relevant details first. And then potentially they have an ability to show me all the details, right? So I can just say is I'm going to show it, right? Only key details. Or I may say I not only want to show the key details, I want to show all the reviews and everything associated for this one. Okay. So this now gives it is all the different way my requirement talks about a customer can view a product. They can search by either name, type, price, or a price range. And then once they are done, they can actually click on it to see the key details, or they want to show all the details, including reviews and ratings that we have done it. Okay. Another aspect you can do it is within a search product is you may want to say, show me everything that is ordered by my company, right? So that will be a different ways to do it. So any questions so far?
Yes.
So I want you to think about it is when I build a story map, right? It has to have a user persona, and then it's going to be activity performed by user persona. And then you're going to do it and then this thing talks about okay. Now, when you start talking about Agile, remember we said that it's usually typically 2 to 4 week increments, right? So not necessarily you can implement everything. So that's when they start talking about, okay, these are all the different ways you need to accomplish a task. Can you tell me what is the first thing that we need to do it? And they may say, hey, you know what? I want you to do only user ID and password first. Then I want you to be able to search only by product name. And then once they are done with the product name, I want to show you only the key details. Everything else can done it right. So then you can start talking about in the first iteration, I'm going to start implement a login that allows me just user ID and a password. They can search only by product name, and then they can see key details. So that becomes your priority, right? So when you look into it, this is the order in which you do the priority, right? So from a top to down, it becomes your priority order. Okay. This gives you a good view,
Yes.
right? Now, what you do it is you continue this particular effort for all the activities, right? So the next one is ordering an item. So let's talk about what all activities I will do it when I'm ordering an item, right? So Kushal, you talked about, hey, I want to customize it, right? So in order to customize, I want to upload my logo, right? Then I may also want to do it, right? Place the logo, right? Which position, where it needs to be. If it's a t-shirt, is it on the front? Is it on my sleeve? Is it on my back? Where I'm going to place the logo, right? Then I can just say, hey, once I place the logo, I want to review item, how it'll look like. Then I may want to do it is add to cart, right? So that's typically like it's item. Now, you may want to like see it's, hey, once I customize it, what is my price is going to be look like, right? So that pricing could happen in between, right? And so I can say review price. Now, let's talk about it is uploading a logo, right? So typically logos are the images, right? And as you know, there are various formats within the image you can use it. So you can just say, hey, initially, I'm going to go ahead and upload a logo with only JPEG format. Then I'm going to support PNG format. When placing a logo, we can just say, hey, I want to do it as initially, there's always a standard item, right? So placing a logo initially only on a t-shirt, right? And then within that, I do it front of t-shirt. Because then I don't have to render everything. I can just say, hey, I'm going to take it a t-shirt and then show them how to put it only in the place and one place. Right? A review an item, you can just say, hey, now I can do it is in the browser only. Or I can allow them to download an image of what it will look like. Okay. And for price, we can say, hey, initially, we're going to do it price only for an item, right? So no matter how many quantity I order, they get exact same price. Or I can start saying it is price based on quantity. Right? Adding a cart, it's a simply allow right. So initially I just say it's I can add you only one item, right? Because it's a simple. I don't have to do any complex math, right? Or I can say I'm going to allow add item with multiple quantity. Because that's when you will see it as, hey, sometimes you have a plus and minus sign along with the order that you put in item, and you can keep incrementing it. Things get complex, right? When you increment those quantity, and if your pricing is based on quantity. So again, you may have to say it's, I'm going to take this item, I'm going to implement the simplest logic first as an MVP, and then as it becomes, I'm going to add additional features. Okay. Questions?
None
Yes.
yet.
So you see how logically I start breaking it down things and putting a requirement,
Yes.
right? Okay. And you continue to do that for the corporate customers, then you do it. Oh, I had a wrong copy in place, right? And then you can just say, hey, I'm going to do it for pricing employee, right? So pricing department employee, right? What did we say that they will do it? They will get the reports, right? So they want to set price. They want to set promotions. Right? What other things they can do it?
Would they be the ones that set the payment methods as well?
No, that could be potentially, or they could be depending on whatever my vendor allows me the payments,
Mhm.
right? So,
Mhm.
but payment method could be potentially come into here, right? Corporate customer will send the payment methods, right? They add credit card or add any other place, right? So
Mhm.
this could potentially, right? It could be also manage my profile, right? And then as part of the managing profile, it could be reset my password, right? Let's just talk about a couple of them here, right? It could, like, it's kind of set my password, right? Could be, right? It could also set my address, right? We can say shipping address. It could be set my billing address. So on, right? So there could be multiple activities depending on that they do it. Okay. So that's how you start building it out a story map. Any questions?
None so far.
Good so far? All right. So what I want to do it is I want you to spend 15 minutes and build for PHN nurse a story map. And I will leave this one up. Right. So it's 9:39. You want to go till 10 o'clock to build your story map and then share it. Right. Think around your stakeholder diagram, think around your process diagram, which talks about what all activities nurse will perform. Right? Good?
Yes.
All right.
Sounds good.
Dilip, just a quick question. So basically, we will think in the perspective of a system, right? She will also log into a system.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank
Think
you.
about what activities I will perform for a PHN and in the context of within the system only, right? I may
Okay.
still do a whole bunch of other activities outside the system. But at
Right.
this point, since I'm building the system, I want to say
Uh-huh.
it's what that user will perform within the system,
Uh-huh.
what task breakdown that they will need it in order to do that,
Got
and
it.
then how they will accomplish it, those things.
Got it. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to give everybody 20 minutes till 10 o'clock. You build it, and then we'll like it's kind of share it and walk through it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to put myself on a mute. Okay. And I'm going to pause the recording. All right. So Shanna, you want to go ahead and
Sure.
share your screen and walk through it, what you came up as a story map for PHN nurse?
Sure. Can you
Okay.
see it well, Dilip?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So my
Is
thought process started. Yes.
hang on one second.
Sure.
Kirja, are you and Kaushal back? Kushal back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's walk through it. Go ahead, Shanna.
Okay. So my thought process started with PHN nurse on the top.
Mhm.
One core activity, patient initial registration. They would log into the system.
Mhm.
These are the core activities. Logs in, opens registration form, fills details, and then creates a patient profile. the task they would do to accomplish this? Like, how would they find it? Logs in, so then they could log in either by a nurse ID or a user ID and password.
So
When they,
go,
yeah, go
go
ahead,
back
please.
to nurse ID, right?
Sure.
Is that the nurse ID? Then how are you going to validate it's that nurse, right? So as a nurse, let's say I have an ID 1234.
Uh-huh.
Is that the only, or are you thinking some biometrics or scan the badge? How are you thinking?
Just feed in the ID because I'm sure it is, I mean, it is special for a individual nurse. I mean, I'm sure no two
Right,
nurses
but
share the
again,
ID.
remember, this is going to be a critical system, right?
Yes.
So you need some sort of security. Let's say if I know your ID, Shanna, and you are a nurse,
Uh-huh.
is it good enough me to type it your ID and I'm in?
Okay, that makes sense. So then if they were to scan a badge, how do you put that here?
So the badge scanning is probably it's another way, right? So you need a system integration, right? So typically nurses have a badge and they have a magnetic strip at the back
Yes.
that they scan it and then do that, right? So I
Uh-huh.
would suggest it is when they log in, let's start with a simple thing where they have a user ID and a password credentials.
Okay.
Then you can use the nurse ID, and then potentially you can use a multi-factor authentication down the road, right? But initially, let's keep it simple and say nurse is going to use a user ID and a password to log in into the system.
Okay. Okay. So in this case, does this become the MVP?
Right, that becomes a part of
Okay.
MVP. I mean, again, you can decide MVP once you identify that what slice of work you can do it, right?
Got it.
But
Got it.
login is two different ways they can log in. They can log in through user ID and a password,
Uh-huh.
a nurse ID, and then I would just say it is down the road, they may be able to use some sort of a biometrics to log in,
Sure. Okay.
right? So add
Sounds.
a biometrics tab there. Because this is a sensitive system, right? With the
Yes,
patient
yes,
HIPAA
you're right. You're
information,
right.
I do want to
Right.
make sure that it is properly secured. Yes.
Makes sense. Then they would
Okay.
open the registration form, and that will be pulled by the form name
Okay,
because they wouldn't have any other details at this point, like to pull it by the patient name or something.
that's
So
fine.
yes, okay. Then they would fill details. They
Okay.
could be either mandatory details, the ones that come with asterisk according to the
Mhm.
details, or all details.
Okay.
My question was, do I add records here, medical records, or no? This is just plain registration, so we leave it out right now.
So this is just initially about who the patient is
Okay.
and what are their necessary profile or biometrics, or not biometrics, biographic data, like its
Got
name,
it.
address, potentially how they were engaged, right? So you have to look into the form and says,
Uh-huh.
what are the details? What are the mandatory details, right?
Yes.
But essentially you're giving them capability to fill it form online
Uh-huh.
and then fill the detail.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay,
One
next
one
is,
one
yes.
things that you can think around down the road,
Uh-huh.
and not the first one, right, is have an ability to scan the form and upload it. So you said that the patient could potentially fill in and drop it the form physically into the office,
Yes.
right? At that point, do you want to have them enter all of manually, which is what you're talking about? I'm going to fill in that detail. Or potentially down the road, they say, hey, I'm going to scan the form and upload the data automatically by reading that form, right? So fill in details could be either those two or upload a PDF file or upload a scanned image.
Okay. Got it.
Right.
Okay. So
Okay.
then create profile, and it would show patient details.
Now, tell me a little bit more about when you think about patient details, what are you talking about?
So when you're creating profile, it will give you patient details. Like, for example, when the nurse searches, like just to make sure the patient detail is in the system. So whatever data you filled in the form is visible now. It's more like when you search a product, you get a list. So when the end result of filling the details will be creating a profile in the system. The whole exercise, like for the patient to come into the nurse, he or she's filling out the information, and then what is happening in the system is
But what happens when I save the details? Shouldn't that automatically create the profile? So when I fill the detail and I
yes.
submit it,
Okay.
why do I need to do a separate activity? I already filled the form. There's a reason why I filled the form, right?
Right. Okay.
So creating profile is a side effect of filling the detail and submitting the form, right? So maybe you can just say, do you want to like have a save or submit, right? So submitting a form will create a profile.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Again, I would keep this activity as a separate. So instead of create profile, I would use it submit form,
Oh, I get it. Okay.
right? And then
Got it.
that should trigger in everything else, right? Because I could be doing a filling the detail and saving it, not submitting it, because there could be a information might be missing. So I need to go call parent and says, can you provide this detail?
Yes, makes sense. Okay. 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 All right. So submit form will show patient details still come here because, or
Well,
no?
it will automatically, right? So submit form will automatically do the creation of profile. So you don't need a specific, I would just use it same thing as a submit form, right? So that's clicking the button and performing the activity.
Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, so now one of the other, like you said, patient initial registration was one of the core activities. The other is the initial assessment.
Right.
So
Okay.
in this, the nurse will access the patient medical details because you need to start assessing where the patient is or how he or she
Okay.
looks. And then when you're accessing the patient medical records, it will show you all the records.
Okay.
And then second is once you assess, you want to record the result. And when you want to record the result, I'm assuming it is a patient form that you'll fill all the result into, that particular patient.
Or it could be a visitation record, right? So I would not say patient form. I would just say fill in assessment details, right?
Okay.
Because what
Patient
exactly they're
assessment.
recording it, right? Hey, I looked at this patient. This is patient's the BP data. This is patient's blood data, whatever the
Sure,
assessment they do it, right? So they are just filling the detail and attaching it that to the patient record, right?
Okay. Okay. And then the next would be looking for a BCMH provider.
Okay.
So when I do that activity, yes, go ahead, please.
So when you do a search of BCMH provider, right, you will show everybody that is available, or you can search by specialty, right? So I would put it like search by specialty, list all providers. So don't just use specialty, right? Typically, you want to have it in name, noun, and action, noun, verb type of things.
Okay, search by specialty. Okay.
Or I could search by name, right? Because they may say, hey, can you check it to see if this particular doctor is or in this list, right? So list of all providers, search by name, search by specialty, or show all.
Oh, okay, okay, or show all.
Right.
Got it.
So that means show me everybody who's available, and then I can look into it, right? Because they may just say, hey, I want to utilize the provider which is closer to my home instead of further.
Got it.
Right. So you may also have a search by PCMH provider by distance, right? So show me everybody which is within 3 miles or 5 miles type of thing.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Search by distance. Got it. Okay.
Right. Now you can also think about it as you can use only one criteria or you can use multiple criteria.
Okay, so when you say
So
show
I
all,
want
would
by
that be?
specialty and that specialty is within 10 miles from me.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right.
Right.
So
so Dilip, you would list that also?
yeah, that will also be a potential way I would like you to do it is search by specialty and distance both, right? So allow multiple fields. Like search by multiple criteria.
Okay, search by multiple criteria. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. The next step would be
Again, one thing I would recommend you
sure.
is as you build in,
Mm-hmm.
color code the activities, task, and the ways you're going to do it, just like what I was
Yes.
showing it.
Yes, absolutely. Today, because it was a first time thing, I was
No,
just
but you can
spending the time.
right click and you can fill the
Yes,
by
yes. I
color,
was
right?
just spending the time to kind of get
Yeah.
my thoughts together and kind of just record the basic. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, so the next step would be the referral part. When a nurse is ready to put in the referral, they will need an MAF form to fill it out, and they would sign and date the MF form.
So I want you to think about it, right? Why do you have those two as two separate activities? If I do an MAF form, by alone, does it deliver a value? It doesn't,
No,
right?
no, it doesn't. If it is not signed and dated, no.
Right. So why do I need a two different activity? It has to be all one activity. If I build an MVP with just the MAF form and no sign or no signature, does it deliver any value to nurse or to patient?
No.
So you have to think about it. Is whatever activity you're putting it, does it allow me to actually use the system in somewhat basic form?
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. All right.
Okay.
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 Got it.
Next one.
And the next is the daily activities that the nurse does. This patient encounter is more like people who may be coming back again.
Okay.
And then they have to they have to input all the information. So then they would look up the system. They could pull that information by patient name or patient ID, the forms that they will need to again fill out all the details. And then next would be timesheets that they need. And the timesheets will have daily input by the nurses.
Okay. So this one is good. Do you think you captured all of the high-level nurse activities?
I think high level, yes. I wasn't sure about the reassessment, but I went to my use cases and made sure I had captured stuff from there. But again, I'm willing to know what else I missed.
All right, so let's pause it here. Like if you can stop sharing and let's give it to Girja. Girja, can you show what you have it? Okay. You're on mute, Girja.
Login, entering username and password, or electronic ways to login, or using biometrics.
Okay.
Referring the patient, I'll write the enter patient
So
details.
what one layer you're missing is activity and task, right? So those are two breakdowns.
Okay. So this is
right. You're putting the task and activities as a similar manner, right?
This is activity, and this is task.
No. Those words based on complete. You missed the whole layer in between. Remember what we said. There's going to be activity. Activity could be is I want to register a patient. In order to register a patient, what all I need to do? I need to log in. I need to it's take the form and type in details. Those kind of things.
Okay. Yes. Right.
So go ahead. Let's walk through it, right? But you need to organize all of your activity into that higher. What you have it is your tasks.
Okay.
You need to take those tasks and put at a higher level activity on top of it.
Okay. I'll do.
Okay.
Here, referring patients, it's entering the patient details and send it to the doctor.
Right. So when you say send it to the doctor, right? Is it like you fill the form and then you're blindly sending it to doctor,
Yeah,
or you're sending it?
filling the form is here and sending it to the doctor is here.
But which
So two
doctor
different.
I'm sending it to,
Oh, okay.
right?
Okay, so I have
You
to
got to be more specific,
okay.
right? Hey, I'm sending it to the doctor which has those specialties, right? So in other words, then I need to do it a search that
Mhm.
which doctor I'm going to send it to,
Okay. So
right? So similar to what Shanna was sharing it,
okay.
right? Search a doctor is going to be actually your task. And there
Okay.
are different ways you can do it, right? So that's going to
Okay.
be one of your pink stickers, not the blue one. The blue
Okay.
could be multiple different ways that I'm going to search to a doctor. Sending
Okay.
that information to the doctor is also a pink sticker,
Okay.
right? Because that's an activity or a task that you're performing, not
Okay.
have you performing it.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll go from doctor by specialty, by name, by
Right,
distance, everything. Okay.
precisely.
Mhm. Then entering daily activities like travel time, in-home treatment time,
Right.
time sheets. Then enter patient details.
But again,
Uh-huh.
so entering daily activity and patient details, is it part of my daily encounters? Or those two
Pardon,
are separate?
entering daily activities. Excuse me. Pardon. Can you
No,
please?
so remember there was talking about there is a patient encounter, right?
Yes.
That is part of my daily activities.
Okay.
That one is what you're talking about here is patient encounter is I'm going visiting a patient
Uh-huh.
and I'm entering patient data. And then I'm also entering it, how much time it took me, what was the time, so I can bill it, right? So all of
So,
my calendar entry is also activity part of my daily encounter, right? So the box 3 and 4 of that are the pink slips you have it for enter daily activities
uh-huh.
and entering patient treatment details. They both are part of your daily encounter.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Then treatment details, part of the treatment, which part, either they are focusing on the leg or eyes, like that thing, and what
Mhm.
type of treatment it were given, and how it works, and plan for the next visit, what they are going to.
Okay. So I'm not clear on how it works. What do you mean by how it works? Think about it. Way too
Whether the
complex.
type, whether the treatment type they were providing it, it helps the child or not, like how it works, or they need to change the method of treatment or something.
So that's essentially a diagnostic and a treatment plan, right? That's not an activities. That's not a ways to accomplish. Think it from a system point of view. What
Okay.
capabilities you're providing the system that enables them to accomplish that activity,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So how it works is probably does not fit there.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
So,
Then
okay, Joe, what I want you to think about it is think a work breakdown structure,
okay.
right? So let's say I'm going to prepare a meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the activities could be is, hey, I'm going to make a roti. I'm going to make a dal. I'm going to make a sabji, right? Those are my activity. Within the roti, what I will do at activity is I'll take it like a flour. I will knead the dough, right? And then I will like it's cook the roti. Those are three ways to accomplish that work,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to do all three in order to make a roti, right? So that all three activity becomes now part of my MVP. Making a dal could be three or different ways I could make a dal, right?
Okay. I'll
And then I
rearrange.
re so I want you to think about same way that how would nurse go, what activity they will perform in order to do that activity, what are the different tasks they will do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then while doing those tasks, what system can help them to do those tasks, or how would they accomplish those tasks using the system,
Okay.
That's how you want to think about it.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Does it make sense? I think it's
Yes,
you
yes.
got bits and pieces. It's just a matter of rearranging it in the right breakdown structure.
Okay, I'll do.
Right. Okay.
Can I stop sharing?
Yeah. Kushal, you want to go ahead and share what you have it then?
Yes. I wasn't able to fully finish. There are a few items, but I'll share what I have so far. Let's see. Okay, so I broke it down with register patient, assess, reassess, log daily activities. Recording counter is where our time had lapsed by the time I got to
That's
that.
okay.
So for register patient, we have login. So whether it's user ID and password is what we'd want to start off with the MVP. Maybe move on to badge sign-in biometrics, or maybe a two-factor authentication as well.
Right.
And then enter patient information. So they'll fill the patient information or they'll upload the patient information. Upload patient forms so they can fill out the forms in the system or import the file electronically. And then they'll save the profile. So they'll either click on the save button or there'll be like an auto save changes as well.
Okay.
And then for the assessment,
Uh, okay, that's good. Like it's click on save button. That's fine. Auto save changes. We can talk a little bit more about it as the detail comes. Go ahead.
Okay. So then we have assessment or reassessment. So they'll search a patient. They can do that by the first name, last name, patient ID, by their PHN provider, or by their phone number. And then they'll record the assessment so they can fill out the form in the system, import the file, or copy and paste from like an external like an electronic assessment into the field. And then they'll save the assessment. So they'll click on the save button or they can auto save the changes. And then logging daily activities. So they'll need to enter the date. So they can either type the date in, choose the date via drop down, or choose the date through like a calendar that pops up. And then they'll enter time spent. So they'll type the time started and time ended. Or they, and then they
Let
can.
if I may pause it, right?
Mhm.
So when you say it's entering the date or enter the time spent, do you think they need to provide something else in addition to that? So think of this way. If I'm a nurse, I go in and enter the date and how much time I spent it on that day. Is that sufficient, or do I need to say, I went to patient XYZ, I spent this much time there on this date?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that brings up my question as well. So even though we have like this, this string right here of searching the patient,
Huh?
would we carry that same string over to the other areas as well?
Yeah,
Because they would have to initially search for the patient for all the other areas as well, correct?
right. So potentially I want to think about logging a daily activity is what day today is, right? And that date, which patient I visited, how much time I spent it, right? So potentially you're missing it in an entry somewhere
Oh, okay,
in
I see.
between
I
that
see.
it's not sufficient me for to enter date and time spent only, but I have to enter the date, I have to select which patient I visited, and then I enter the time spent and
Okay.
location and that, right? So you're
Mhm.
just missing a task in between
Yeah.
the location of service and somewhere between enter the date or enter the time spent.
Right. That way they're filling out who they're actually seeing
Right,
during that activity.
right.
Or
So
if it's
think
like
about it.
admin time or if it's
Right.
whatever it may be.
I'm doing it a patient, all of the patient activity in the assess and reassess. and I'm doing my billing and my own, how did I have spent my day into logging the daily activity, right? But
Okay.
then I have to specify also, not only just I visited 4 patients, I have to specify which patients I visited, right?
Okay,
So that
that
they
makes
can
sense.
track it and say it's okay, for this patient you did that. Do you have an assessment record? Why you're missing it? You see it, how the business process works?
Right. Okay, that makes sense because then yeah, because I also have the activity and billing code, but if it's not assigned to a patient, then it's like what's happening here, right?
Right,
Or if there's documents
precisely.
missing for that. Okay, that makes sense. Um, okay. So I'll add that in between time spent and then location of service.
Right. Yeah.
So then we have the location of service. They can either type in the location, choose a location from the drop down, or select location from options, like a what am I trying to say? Like a bullet point one, you know what I mean? Where you click on
Yeah.
the button.
Yeah. So you can just say it's, hey, it's, is it, I see it like it's, I think it's the first two, it makes more sense. The third one, probably not as needed at this point. It's
Okay.
essentially either you type in or I want you to select from a drop down, right? And the drop down location could be um, either based on any of the facilities that we have it, or if I'm visiting them at home, my drop down location is essentially a state and city where the patient is residing.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we have mileage. So they would type in the total mileage. They can type in the origin mileage, the distance it took from wherever they were going, to like the initial origin, and then how much mileage it was to their destination. I put this integrated map tool as a question mark because I think that would be a bit too complicated for what the system is trying to do if you integrated like a map tool in with it. I wasn't sure though. So
So
um
here, when you say type origin mileage and type destination mileage, walk me through a little bit. What are you thinking at that point?
yeah, so mileage to let's say they are going from their home or wherever they're staying to um the office or to a patient location. They'll type that. Oh, wait, no, but as I'm talking it out, it makes sense to kind of group that as
Right. I was going to say, right? So
yeah.
either you type in the total mileage or you type it the starting point and end point,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll go using the map tool, it'll calculate what is the distance and it'll populate it,
Okay. So
right?
start and end.
Destination, right? And location or something like that.
Mm.
Right. And then you
Okay.
don't need the last two
Right. Okay.
because that's part of it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, and then we have the activity or billing code, so they can type in the billing code, choose the billing code via drop down, and then I'll take out the one for the options. They can just
Mm-hmm.
type that in. Okay.
Okay.
And then they'll have the optional notes as well, so they'll just be able to type in the optional notes from there, and then they can save the encounter as well, so they'll click on the save
Right.
button. Um,
Now, I want you to think around is record encounter and then go back to the previous one where you had it, right? Is not before daily activity, the one where you have it, right? Assess, reassess, right? Are they more closely associated, right? So when
oh, they
I'm
are, yeah.
recording an encounter, am I continuously assessing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's something for you to think about it, reading it is that, yes, I will definitely need a separate activity called record and encounter,
Mm-hmm.
but is assess and reassess becomes an activity that can be utilized during that time also or not. So
Mm.
something for you to think,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Right.
Now, in the three, uh, all of you got a good start for your story map, right? So I want you to think about it. Am I missing other activities? So think about a PHN nurse, right? Well, you talked about that they need to log in daily activities. They need to record all those things. But when I come in this morning, do I know where all I need to go today? Right? So there might be some sorting around scheduling, right? Show me my today's schedule, right? Give me ability to uh, essentially, if I have to record a cancel an appointment, right? Hey, I was going to go to see a patient for whatever reason, patient is not going to be at home, and I may need to cancel that appointment, right? So think it holistically when you have your business process to say, am I missing any activity? Do I need to add any activity or not? Okay.
That makes
Okay.
sense. Thank you.
Right. So as you go through it, right, you will continuously expand it to figure it out. Did I miss an activity that I needed system to help the nurse with it? And then go from there. Okay. So so now I'm going to like spend 5 more minutes before we will take a break, but let me share a screen. Okay. So let me know when you're able to see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay. So what you do it is you create those sticky notes for your story, but then you need to expand upon it to actually tell what exactly is the requirement, right? So typically you take each one of those story and then you start, or each one of the sticky notes, and then you start defining it as associated story, right? So in the case that we were talking about, hey, I want to be able to view all the products, right? I may want to be able to do it is as a customer, I want to browse the product catalog so that I can view all the products available to order, right? So your story template talks about who is doing, right? So persona, what activity they perform, okay, and why are they going to do it? Okay, so let's take it if I want to do a login, right? I'm going to do, okay, and say as a customer, I want to log in the system using ID and password so that I can review my orders or place new orders in custom creations. Can I take it off these things? Okay. And this is not end customer, right? So as a corporate customer. So this becomes my story. So now think about it. This is a requirement, right? I can, if I can spell today. So this tells me if I'm implementing a system that I want to provide some sort of a login page that allows me to capture user ID and a password. And if they are valid user ID and a password, I want to show them ability to either place the order or give them an option to review that existing order. Right? Okay. Any questions of how you take something which is here like this and start drafting the detail?
No, that makes sense.
Right? So, but starting next week, we will start talking about the tools and how you use the tools to capture all of those requirements, right? But essentially, you need to start thinking about take your logic. So think around logically how we are grouping and how we are coming to specific details, right? So you create a stakeholder map, you perform interview, collect the data. Based on that data, you essentially start putting a context diagram, process diagram, and a story map like this. Okay. And then you take those story maps and start converting into specific Jira stories, which then now the developers will go ahead and implement it.
Dilip, what did you say? What is it called? Jira stories?
Right. So Agile stories, there is a tool called Jira, and we'll introduce you those tools, Jira, as well as there is a Microsoft Azure DevOps tool.
Okay.
Right. So you create those stories into either one of those tools, DevOps or a Jira. Jira is a
Okay.
tool, right?
Okay.
So we will walk through it, right? But essentially, you capture this level of details into whatever the tool you're using it, so that the developer can look into it and says, yes, I want to do this, right? Now, the question comes in is, what are exceptions? What if I fail it to log in? Then you say, okay, if there are exception stories, right, then I'm going to give them ability to essentially reset my password, right? So log in, right? As part of login, I could do it a display error message. That means if my user ID and a password is not right, or whatever happens, that as part of login process, I'm going to show them that, hey, I'm not able to successfully log you in. Okay. So this starts encapsulating everything into a single place now. Any questions?
Dilip, when you mentioned Agile, when you said story mapping and the Agile cycle, will
Right.
this be the same if the company had some other system in place, if it was not Agile, if it was waterfall or the other methodology?
But so if it is a waterfall or other methodology, right, what they will do it is they will, remember you draw the process maps,
Uh-huh.
and then you take that process map and start building a document with all, list out all of the requirements into one place,
Correct.
right? So whether you do it story mapping and put all the requirements, or you put a Word document and put all the requirements in there, the process
Okay.
is still the same,
Got it.
right? In Agile, right, it allows me to keep expanding the story map as I learn more.
Got it.
Versus in a waterfall, I'll ask all those questions and I'll document all of those into a single place.
Oh, got it. Sounds good.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know if Herschel has sent it out, the document around our flown, or the entire requirements document.
I remember seeing the problem statement.
Okay. So he will send it out like sometime
Okay.
next week, right? But that'll give you an example of how you do that, right? So we will start talking about how you collect all of this information that you've started building so far and put together in a document or put together into a tool that
Okay.
now enables you to connect all the dots.
Okay, so then would that be right to say that if it is Agile methodology, you use this, what you're teaching, and if
Right.
it is any other methodology, you use document to document everything?
Right. You
Okay,
still need
okay.
to break down the details like
Sure,
what I'm
sure,
doing it, right? It's
sure.
just a matter of you do it through the story map, or you
Okay,
do the conversation and put all of them into one place of document.
got it. Got it. Sounds good. Thank
Right? Because good, understand how you take a card here and start defining the requirements.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
And then
Now
these
let's-
requirements are being viewed by like the developers and the
Right.
or like product managers who would be
R-
incorporating that based on what we make, right?
Precisely. Yeah.
Okay.
So the developers then will start taking this requirement and start building system using those requirements. Okay. So let's take 5-minute break. I know it's been like it's an hour and 50 minutes that we continuously going. So let's take a time till 10:55, and then we'll like start going a little bit on the next two topics. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Let me pause all of you. Is everybody back?
Yes. Dilip, I had a question. For the color coding, does it have to be a specific color or no?
No, it's essentially, you don't have to be a specific color, right? But you want to be able to clearly distinguish what layer is what,
Sure.
right? So that people do not get confused. A lot of companies and the tools will automatically, they think about it. This is your initial mind mapping, right? But once you start creating story and put into the tool, that's what it is. The only thing you're putting in the tools is the stories,
Got it.
right? This is a way for you to organize and distinguish. That's why it doesn't matter what color code you do it, as long as you
Okay.
distinguish different colors.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So the next thing you do it, once you do the story mapping, right, is you need to start stitching it like it's, if you're trying to like it's build a visual system like it's kind of a web application, right? Then you start doing it what is known as a page flow or a wire flow diagram. So essentially you start taking a user's perspective and says, how would user will navigate through the system, right? So this is an example of a login, right? So you could potentially, when you go to login, right, it'll display the first as a login page with a user ID and a password, right? But if you notice it most of the times, what if I forgot my password? What if I forgot my user ID? Then there is always a path, right, that enables you to click in that login and allows you to go and say, hey, put in your email address and send it to me. So when they send it, they will get an email. And then using a link in the email, they can go and reset the password, right? Or potentially you may have a different path where, hey, forgot the password. They may ask you to provide your nurse ID and your some additional credential that is specific to you only to identify. And then based on that, then they will give you ability to reset the password, right? Here's one example, what you're seeing on the screen for a path.com, right? They chose it to reset the password through email, and that's what this path is showing. If I'm on the login page and I don't know my password and I want to reset the password, I'll click on forgot my password. That will prompt me to put in my email address and click send. And once I click on send, it will send me an email that I'll have to go, which is a one-time reset link, which I click on it, it'll prompt me to enter my new password. Okay, so that's one way to do the page flow diagram. Right? But then you also do it is what happens if I'm successfully logged in? Then what path I follow? So you have to take an activity which says how is the information is going to flow in or how the user is going to get navigated, right? So let's take our example, and I'm going to go back to the path that we tried, right? So here is a login. Let's say I want to do a page flow diagram from a corporate customer point of view. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't want that. I want, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get it from a person as part of it, right? So the first thing you say that it'll come in is they will do a login, right? The activity is a login. Now, if they are login, and I'm going to actually change the color for this so that you know that this is a page flow diagram, right? So let's say I'm logging in. Now there are two ways, right? So if I'm successfully log in, it should, if I successfully log in, it's going to give me option to either search, right? Or it's going to allow me to view my orders, or it could give me ability to manage my profile, right? We talked about like it's managing your credit card information, managing your address, managing your password, and so on, right? So this way you can say it's, hey, if I'm log in successfully, it's going to allow me to do one of the three activities. Okay. Or it could, from a view order, right? It may then allow me to do some additional activities such as search for an order and then check its particular things, right? So this search could be search for products. Okay. So that way, when you go for a view orders, it'll come in. Now, what happens if I fail it, right? So if I fail it, and again, I'm going to go ahead and do this. If I fail it, it may give me an option to reset my password. Right? Or it could also display an error message. Right? And then they will do an error message. Here, I'll try to do this so that it doesn't cross it, right? So from my logging page, I'm going to navigate to one of these 5 pages, depending on the situation, right? Now search, when I'm searching for product, you can say, hey, the flow may work it is I search it. Excuse me, right? And I do display results page. So it shows me if I search, let's say by a name, and then like it matches 4 names, then I'll show all of them. Or alternatively, like it's once the display results happen, then it allows me to view details. Right. And then as you go through it, right, the sequence diagram essentially enables you to, hey, what do I do after getting the detail? Maybe I'm going to go ahead and order an item, right? So it allows you to build the whole page flow. So now each post-it or each box here becomes a page into the system. And then you essentially say, what is that page is going to look like? So now what you're doing when you start doing a page flow is you're telling implementation team, this is how the information needs to flow. And this is how corporate customer is going to use the system to accomplish their tasks and activities. Questions?
So as a business analyst, would we be doing page flows more often than wire frames?
So page flow and wireframes are more or less, you can think about it, it's a similar activity, right? You will
Okay.
build a page flow first, and then you would say, okay, what is the wireframe of login page is going to look like? Right? What is my wireframe to managing my profile that's going to look like? Right? What activities I'm going to be able to accomplish on that page, that becomes a wireframe.
Okay,
And then
so
that
it's
becomes
essentially, so it's like creating the flow of it like this and then turning that into the wireframe.
right. So you
Okay.
actually took us to the next set, right? So this is what it'll do it, right? So here's an example. Now I take that one particular page and then break it down into what it will look like and build a wireframe around it. Okay. So it talks about, hey, when I go to my preferences or like to manage my profile, right? I can do manage personal details. I can do it payment details. I can do communications. I can do a travel. And each one is going to look like this. Right. So what I can do is let's go back to where we were, right? So now I've done this. Let me go ahead and say, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and just show you what is the wireframe is going to look like for login, right? So then you can start building a wireframe, right? And say, hey, it's going to look like this, right? And I'm going to do a no fill. And within that, it will have something like it's my county logo, right? So in this case, right, so we're doing custom creations, right? So it will be custom creations logo image, right? I'm going to put it at the top, that logo, right? And underneath that logo, I'm going to give them ability to enter a user ID. I'm going to enable them to enter that. I'm going to ask them to enter password. Then they're going to have a button to log in. And then they may also have something like it. So it could have a message like this, and then this could become a link, right? And it could just say, hey, that's what it's going to be like this. So this becomes my wireframe, that this is what the login page is going to look like. Okay. So you enable them to create the login page and says, my login page is going to look like this. Now they say, hey, what is my displaying error message is going to look like? Right. So you can say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, right? And say this thing. Now here, I could potentially just say it, right? And say, I can display an error message right here, right? Like this. And it says, hey, we want to bold these things into a red so that it's visible, right? So now this is my error message page. Looks exactly same as my login with the additional error detail. So now when somebody is implementing system, they exactly know what order it needs to stitch in, how each page from a high level wireframe is going to look like it. Right. And this is a low fidelity wireframe, right? So I'm not putting any images or colors or anything. I'm just saying placement where what information needs to be placed. So they get an idea of how to organize the information on a page. The questions.
I know I asked this one time before early on in the class. I'm still trying to differentiate in my mind the difference between like an agile business analyst and a product manager, right? Because both of them essentially would have the skills and the knowledge to build the wireframes and do the page flows. But what would be the like would a agile BA be creating like a low fidelity wireframe and then the product manager would take over from there, or what would that look like, I guess?
No, so it's a gray area, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
depending on a big company where you have a specific people playing specific roles,
Mm-hmm.
right? You may have agile business analyst pull together all this information and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Your product manager will be looking at the story map and identify what is my priority in which order what work needs to get done,
Oh, okay.
and then
Okay.
doing that, right? And they will also look into it is when a developer builds the page, they will review it and they will agree that, yeah, this looks good, or no, I want the logo to be shifted from a left to the right, and that's how the page needs to look at it, type of things,
Okay. Okay.
right? So think of those two roles as not necessarily people tied, but it's the activity, right?
Okay. Okay. That
Now,
makes.
in a small firm, you may have the product manager also providing you all those details and analysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you will just have a one person doing all of these things,
Okay. Okay.
right? They will still be talking to the business users and prioritizing it,
Right.
versus business analysts talking to the business user, putting the detail in, a product manager talking it and prioritizing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
What additional things that you have in your mind? I saw also Shanna go off the mute. So Shanna, what questions you have?
I rethought of what you had said that in terms of the my head went into the aesthetics, but you said this is the primary document, so it may not have the necessary aesthetics that go with it. My question was more from a perspective that who tells you like the background should look like blue and the logo is this and where the placement goes? Is there like a different meeting for that, or I'm assuming it is at a later stage?
So there are a couple of things.
Uh-huh.
In a big corporation, right, where you have multiple systems, they may already have a look and feel and standards put into place. Like company like Chase, you just don't go and create whatever color background you want it as a product owner.
Hmm.
There are certain rules that need to fill it so that all of the application seems a
Uniform.
transparent, uniform, and integrated,
Yes.
right? So they do it, right? In a small company, they may
Mhm.
just say, hey, you know what? I want this blue color, right? So they will specify as a requirement that the background needs to be a blue color. But there's a lot of shades of blue color, right? So that's when it comes into it, is when I'm building this page, there'll be a back and forth. Or like we build the page, show it to the user and says, do you like this? Yes, good. No, what changes you would like it? And they will specify what changes you want it. And then you put that thing.
Got it.
So
So,
it's
but
an
does it,
iterative process.
okay, and does it go right now in this stage or that comes later?
As the system starts building, right? So think of this way, right? All of these things, I'm defining the stories, right?
Huh?
And then when I start implementing stories, I'll be working back and forth with the product owner to accept the story. So it'll go as part of that acceptance criteria,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
right? Now, how big of stories and how big you take it in an iteration, it's going to be depending on the capacity of your team, right?
Mhm.
Somebody say, hey, I have it's a team of 10 developers. They can do this many work. So somebody say, hey, I have a team of only 3 developers. Then you adjust accordingly to what do you accept in a sprint, and then at what point you're ready to release MVP.
Okay. When you said iteration, can you help me understand what does that mean from this perspective?
Oh, let me go back to this, right? So if you recall it, right? Do you remember this diagram?
No.
Yes.
Okay, I don't. Okay.
Okay. So when we started talking in the first class, right? We
Uh-huh.
said I have a vision and then I break it down into multiple pieces.
Okay.
So think about it, right? I have a custom creation vision,
Mm-hmm.
right? That my problem statement talked about it, what I want to do it.
Right.
I build a story map by talking to the users,
Mm-hmm.
right? And once I build a story map, I'll build something like this story map, right?
Yes.
And
Okay.
then I
Good.
identify, hey, I have 5 developers who can work on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And we typically want to do 2 to 4 weeks of iteration. Let's say I want to do 2 weeks of iteration. They will say, in 2 weeks, what you can break it down. Let's just slice it out.
Got it. Got
They
it.
say, I
Yes.
can do this, this, then this story. Good. Then
Mm.
that becomes your iteration 1.
Okay.
Then
Would
it
that be
becomes
right?
iteration 2.
Is it like phase? In other words, phase
I would
one,
not
phase
say
two? No?
phase, but
Okay.
it is, think about it, is what is the minimum product that I can deploy that the user can react it and provide me feedback or can
Okay.
start using it.
Got it.
Okay. So, and things like a PHN nurse, right? So definitely in a 2 weeks, you won't be able to build a system that your nurses can start using it, right? So you may have to say, it's okay, I'm going to take 3 iterations to build an MVP. In first iteration, I'm going to do this functionality. Second iteration, I'm going to do this. In third iteration, I will do this. Now there is a minimum set of functionalities that nurse can start using it.
Got it. Got it.
Then
Yes,
in the
that makes
4th
sense.
iteration, I will enhance one of the functionality, provide a login instead of just user ID and a password. I will provide a biometrics, right? But to get
Yes.
started with the users to use the
Mm.
systems, they don't need both. They just need only one,
Get it. Get it. Yes.
right?
No, great example. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So that's where you go through it, right? So think of it how we took the information of custom creation, right? From a problem statement, we did stakeholder map, we did the context diagram, we did the use cases and a process diagram. Then we did the story map, refined the story, did the wireframes and page flow diagrams, right? So if I look at it, right, let me create a new slide. Okay, I'm going to change the layout to, right? So think around sequence, right? So what you did is you reviewed the problem statement. Okay, build stakeholder map, right? Conduct interviews, right? Then I build a context diagram. I did a process diagram. Okay. Then what else you did,
Use
right?
cases?
So you review, yes, you do the use cases, right? Again, as you go through it, right, you review information. And I'll put it like it's along the way, right? Along this way, right? When you did all these 4 activities, you do a continuous review. Validation, right? That, hey, is this information right? Is this wrong, right? So they give you, like it's while you were drawing the process diagram, right? You were reviewing with Herschel and says, is my understanding of the process right? Right? He gave a feedback, you adjusted the process diagram and then so on, right? Once you did the use cases, right? Then you started doing a story map. I think it's use cases. You need to do it before you do the process diagram, right? Because you need to know which process you need to build it. Then you did a story map. Then you did the page flow, right? Then you do wireframe. And then along the way, you build the story. So that's the sequence in which you've done it, all the work, right? So you took a problem statement and then started focusing on it to the point where you now build something that your developer can take it and can start implementing it. Okay. Does the sequence made sense? Do you get the holistic picture of how we
Yes.
arrived at this thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know, Girja, you mentioned that you need to drop off at 11:30, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's do a couple of things, right? So what I want you to do is we'll pause it here, right? Because I want to make sure um, we have given you a context and a homework before everybody gets off. So you built a story map. What I would like you to do is do a page flow and a wireframe of the PHN nursing. Okay. And
Okay.
I'll store it, like I don't have everybody's email address handy because Herschel sends out typically this, but I'll send it to Herschel, all this details that what we did it, right? So now let's talk about the homework, right? So homework for you for Friday, right, is refine for PHN from nurse's point of view. And I also want to do it one more persona, right? You pick the persona, right? We talked about 3 or 4 different personas for PHN, remember?
Yes.
So I want you, everybody to do a PHN nurse and pick one more persona, right? Draw a page flow diagram for both the personas, right? So essentially PHN nurse plus one more. Okay. And then I want to do it a wireframe for at least 3 activities for PHN nurse. Okay. So that's what I would like you to do between now and Thursday.
Okay.
Right. And I'll recommend you to start pulling together all of the data that you've collected, all of the activities that you've performed so far into one place. So that now when we start talking about building a document or building artifacts, you will be able to pull in all of those things into one place together.
So Dilip, I've been using Lucid Chart. Would you still
That's
recommend?
fine.
That's okay, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's all the link. You can put it everything into Lucid Chart. Or
Got it.
remember, like it's as you conduct the interviews, right?
Uh-huh.
You should be having a notes, right? To all the
Right.
questions and what the answers you got for those questions.
Right.
So that becomes a think around. This is not going to be only in one place, right? So it's going to be some diagrams, some requirements. It could be either a Word document, some pictures, like it's I've been doing it using PowerPoint, right, for
Right.
wireframes and everything. It could be
Right.
that also. It could be if you're using a sophisticated wireframe tools like Figma, it could be that,
Oh, okay. Okay.
right? But all I'm
Mhm.
saying is that irrespective of what format you've been kind of using it, collect all into one place
Got it.
so that you can start now then validating the requirements and says, do I have consistency? Do I have completeness? And do I have correctness of my requirements?
Got it. Got it.
Right? So if you do it completeness, right? If I have a login page, but no wireframe associated with it, or no story, user story associated with it, that means I'm missing pieces.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Any questions about what we talked today? I know there was a lot to unpack, right? We talked about like its story map, we talked about wireframe, we talked about page flow, and then writing detail of the story. So what I want to also do it is, and this is something that I forgot, right? I want you to write at least 10 stories. And as a user, I want so that format, right? So it is this format, right? As a user, I want to do this so that I can accomplish this task. So 4 things for a homework.
Okay, and I'm assuming Hirsch will also send a recording of today's session,
Yes,
correct?
he will. He will.
Perfect. That'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, he's going to send a recording. I will also send this PowerPoint that I've been kind of creating it. So he will also send it out as a reference so you can refer it as you go through it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? I know it's kind of short session, but you have plenty of things. I would suggest it is use next hour and a half to build it, all those things. And then we'll review it together on Thursday.
Sounds
Sure.
good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. If nothing else, have a wonderful Sunday. And
Thank you. You
we'll
too.
look forward to meeting all of you on Thursday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Hope you all
Thanks.
have a great Sunday. See you all Thursday.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.